Hi guys, Togri here for a new World of Warcraft video, and this video is a mid-season arena tier list video, and to be more precise, this is a ranged tier list video. I'm going to precise also that this one is a mid-rank tier list, so it's not made for 3k rating, or it is not made for glad ratings. It is more made for 1.4, between 1.4k and 2.2 2.4k, depending on if it's in twos or in threes. I'm going to be precise also. There's a lot of criteria that I'm trying to think about, like the positioning of a spec. This is about twos, threes, comp wise. Does it fare well in solo play? Does it fare well as a spec standalone? Does it carry? Does it support the carries? And everything what's around the spec. So your spec could be very bad in twos but very good in threes. Then it deserves like an average rating and not like a D rating, for example. If your spec is completely garbage, which I don't think there is one garbage spec, but okay, your spec is garbage, then it will deserve the D tier. For example, S tier is for me the God tier. The S tier in general is the tier that makes the most sense in a carry setup. Those classes can carry like the team by himself as a support or as a main DPS. And yeah, S tiers are very good picks for your arena comp. A tier is also a good pick. Generally, you pair him with a S tier spec, so you have like a good comp. B tier is average, and it's depending on the comp, and also it can you can make them work, but you will have to work harder for them to make it work. The S tier classes in general are easier to attain a bigger rating, but it doesn't mean that you cannot get a bigger rating with your average spec. C tier is below average, could be better with some buffs, and there is some potential, but not that much. And D tier, it needs a lot of work. It is below average. It is close to garbage, but it is not unplayable. I think like no classes, no specs is unplayable, but it needs a lot of work behind it. Buffs wise, maybe mechanics wise, you need to change directions from Blizzards, that they need to change the class itself or the spec itself, and there is a lot of work behind it. But before we start the video, please like, subscribe, and comment below what you think about the tier list. It helps me immensely if you subscribe or like the video, since the algorithm will see that those videos are appreciated by the public. And I like to make videos, so I prefer to kind of upgrade my content and try to help you guys as much as possible, but also make content that is very watchable for you guys. So let's start this video. Let's start with the BM Hunter. Got a lot of buffs, and there is a lot of buffs coming on their way in 9.0.5. There is a lot of synergy with a lot of classes. You can play like KFC, you can play a jungle with a druid and with a disc priest. There is a lot of comps that you can make it work in twos. It is obnoxious to play against, because there is like a zoo coming on your way. It makes it makes your screen go very blurry and very annoying to deal with. You need to be very aware where the positioning of the hunter is, and which pets you need to kill or CC, since you don't want to get free damage of them. That's why for me BM hunters are actually B tier. It may be controversial. For me, BM hunters are average. It's comp depending. It will not carry games, but it is very reliable damage that you are going to put out, because you don't need to stay on line of sight. You don't need to make a lot of risks to get some damage. You can pop CDs and pop on someone and then try to run away, LOS them, and make the pets go like ham, and you need to try them to make them survive the damage of the enemy. But I think the most difficult around BM hunters is letting the pets go ham, but not ham and not too much of a ham to not die to the enemy. So that's why you need to heal them, try to position them well, but also don't abuse the LOS mechanics, since the pets can also die behind a pillar, and then it becomes very annoying to deal as a hunter. It has some obvious flaws, that's why it's average, but I feel like it gets better and better with the time and with the gear, and also especially with the patches that are centered around BM hunters getting better and better, especially legendary wise. Now you get like a lot of um, possibilities to get good offensive legendaries. They are also very good into warlocks and shadow priests if they go for their feign death legendary. And yeah, I feel it's average, not good, not bad, and it is very comp wise dependent. In twos, you can play with a healer or with a druid, like a feral druid, a balanced druid, or with a rogue. And in threes, you can play KFC, you can play Cupid, you can play a thug leave. There is a lot of possibilities that you can do, but the problem is a lot of people will try to avoid you since they play with better specs, or they want to play with better specs in their comps. Marksmanship Hunter, for me it is A tier, not S tier, and not B tier. It is better than BM Hunter, it has reliable, good damage, but I think it lacks the defensives that other classes can have. They are very squishy, they are often the kill targets, and they are going to get trained on. The saving grace for Marksmanship Hunter is their damage. They don't need to stay in line of sight because of the Kyrian ability, and I feel like they can still one-shot people, but not as much as in the beginning of the season. Has a lot of good twos comp to make it work. You can even play with a paladin, like a red paladin with a holy paladin. You can also play with a rogue. You can play with a feral druid. You can play with a resto druid. You can play with a balanced druid. Often than not, you try to have the initiative as a marksmanship hunter, and that's why you will try to pair yourself with classes that have also the initiative on the enemy. That's why for me, A tier, not S tier, since there is a lot of obvious better specs around. But I feel like you can play in trees with any classes. You can make it work with a KFC again. You can play with KFC. You can play with an elemental shaman. You can play also with a rogue to make it tug leave. You can also play with even with a warrior, still KFC. There is a lot of options that you have. Also Cupid with a red paladin. Um, yeah, you have also a lot of options, and it stays a good spec. I just hope they don't get over nerfed because of PvE, but I feel like Blizzard is on a good direction for the hunter class. I just hope that survival hunter suits way and also gets a rework, or make a fourth spec for hunter, a survival range spec, and a survival pure melee spec, which would be very good and very interesting. Fire mages, they are the first S tier spec, and I'm hesitating to put them as the best ranged spec in Shadowlands. They have insane bursts, they have reliable bursts, they have reliable dispels, they have reliable like steals, excuse me. They they can set up kills with polymorph, with ring of frost, with dragon breath. They have a lot of possibilities as a spec to make a lot of damage, but also to try to gain some time to get the combust going on their way. They have also a lot of talents to make their combust time, like the uptime, a lot longer or a lot smoother, um, like by reducing the CD of combust, which is very good and very powerful if they are also Night Fae. And yeah, they do. they do a lot of damage. If you are not popping CDs when he combusts, generally you are going to die. If you are going to stun the mage, you can always blink if he got the right talent choice. They can also ice block and then play offensively. They can also ice block defensively. They have a lot of options, especially with the Triune Ward. It is very annoying to dispel the combust. A lot of mages try to change their legendary to not go for Triune, but the only problem they have is when they face a Shadow Priest or a Disc Priest or a Shaman. In general, they're going to get their combust dispelled, especially if they play against a mage. Then they just steal the combust and it becomes very annoying to play against. Frost mages now. This is very controversial. For me, frost mages are very strong at the moment. The only problem they have is it's not a dampening meta, so you will not try to one-shot anyone in the beginning of the match. As a fire mage, you can do that. As a frost mage, you will try to set up for kills. So you need to polymorph, you need to control the enemy, and then pull up some reliable burst from the frost mage. But the consistent damage of the frost mage is a lot higher than the fire mage's one. That's why for me, it is for now. I'm putting him B plus, and might go A tier if I'm going to reorder the tier lists. But for me, it's B plus ahead of BM. Oh, it is still average. It's comp dependent. You are not going to carry the game. If you are carrying the game, generally it's because you are a mage and not specifically a frost mage. Mage in general is a very good class. If I should just rank mages in general on a tier list, they would still be S tier, just because of the sheer control they have, the sheer mobility they have, the sheer defensives they have, the Triune Ward legendary. It's still even nerfed. It's still very good for spell protection. The spell protection is very very strong and very very underrated. And for now, Frost Mages are B plus, and they have like a very good comp in twos just by playing with rogues. They can also play with holy paladins, with red paladins. They can try to control the enemy and win the game by controlling the enemy. And that's the difference between Fire Mage and Frost Mage. Fire Mages are more about exploding the enemy team because of combust and then trying to win time. What you do as a Frost Mage is control the game, control the enemy, control the game, and then you will explode people. But you need to control first, and fire mages have the opportunity to do it the other way around. Now, arcane mages, they are on par as frost mages. I am not quite sure if I will put arcane mages at the same level as the frost mages. I don't know if it's above or behind. For now, I'm going to put them B plus, but please wait till the end of the video when I'm going to reorder all the classes and have the definitive tier list. But why did I put arcane mages at B plus or B, like the average tier? I feel like it's a good spec, but it is average because of the comparison of a fire mage. Fire mages have insane burst. Frost mage has good consistent control and damage. But the problem with arcane mages, they are in between. They have only one school, so if they are getting kicked on arcane, they are with their hands like crossed and trying to wait for kills, trying to wait for the CDs to come up, trying to wait the seconds of getting a silenced or interrupt. And often than not, if you play against a double melee, it is very annoying to even cast one spell. You will try to just kite all game long, and if you are the kill target, you're pretty much screwed. Especially in twos. In threes, you can still get covered by your partner, but the saving grace of arcane mages hides behind the difficulty to kill an arcane mage. They have alter time, like on a reduced CD, for example. They have triune ward, still very strong. They have some kind of burst that they can produce with a lot of setup. Fire mages don't need a lot of setup to have the burst. Force mages does need a lot of setup to make some burst, but they have the consistent damage um, to balance it out. But arcane mages have has some consistent damage and some burst, but their setup is a lot longer than the force mages, and their consistent damage is a little bit better than the fire mages one. That's why for me, it is average. It is still, I think, between the fire mages and frost mages, but I will see at the end of tier list if they stay at B tier. They have a lot of comps, the same comps as everyone, as every mage. They can always play with a rogue. They can always play with a holy paladin, with a roster druid, with a disc priest in twos. And in threes, you can always play RMP. You can always play with a warrior, even though I think the warrior will prefer to play with a fire mage. But you can always make it work as an arcane mage. That's the thing. Arcane mages, actually, mages in general are very flexible. I don't think the mage itself, that their damage is what makes them S tier or B tier or A tier. I feel like it's more the control, the utility they have, the mobility they have, the defensives they have, the offensives that they have. That is what mages makes them S tier. All right, elemental shaman. This is the second S tier spec. Hear me out. They have excellent heals. They have like two good legendaries, one offensive with the wind speakers one, which makes your lava burst, lava surge proc after earth shock, which makes them like a gatling gun when they are like on rage on fire. And they have also a defensive one with Earth and Harmony. Basically, their Earth shield are going to heal people for 6k, 7k, and especially their effect is also very nice since it also increases the healing that they can have. It is a very strong spec. It has very good defensives. They can still die in stuns, but they have like a lot of tools to survive those bursts. They are very tanky with the earth elemental, with the conduit, and they have great burst if they play as a necrolord, which they will and which they need to do instead of Venthyr. Venthyr is only good for enhance, and they have also very good comps to play in. In twos, they are quite good, but the only problem they have is often going to be a dampening game. They will play with a healer, or with balance druid, or with a shadow priest, but they will always be the kill target or the focus target for any comp. If you let it elemental just free cast, generally the game will be over in seconds, but it never happens. So they are going to get trained. They will need to set up a lot of things to make the burst happen. They will need a lot of lava surges to make it happen, and casting spells becomes very difficult, especially if they play against a warrior or warrior resto shaman, or a warrior with a resto druid, or even a monk with a disc priest. It becomes very annoying to even cast one spell. But in trees, they are king. They can play with mages, they can play with balance druids, they can play with shadow priests, they can play with affliction warlocks, they can play with basically every one and every spec. The only problem is you cannot play with a rogue, for example, because you're basically very squishy with a rogue, and the rogue becomes a kill target, and often than not, if the rogue gets caught, they will die instantly. I think I think that Elemental is better than Enhanced. That's why it deserves a S tier, but also it deserves S tier because the compatibility that they have with other S tier specs. They are the ideal support class for Shadowlands, but also for any comp that they want to play as a caster cleave, or if they want to play with a very strong main DPS like Warrior or Monk. Balance Druid, another S tier spec. We have a lot of S tier specs in Shadowlands for ranged. The reason is they have very good instant damage and instant burst that they can provide. A Balance Druid with Convoke, if they don't convoke like any 1.4k balance druid that they are trying to convoke and then just backpedal. No, they can hold on convoke for the right time when both are CC'd, both are silenced, and they are pretty much screwed when they are not going to stop the convoke to happen on them. They need to stop Convoke, and that is a constant pressure they have. And imagine if they play with an Elemental Shaman, they will need to choose between silencing the Elemental Shaman or silencing the Convoke or stunning the Convoke. And it becomes very hard and very unpredictable damage. They have also very good off heals. Garden Druid is from the Garden Affinity from Balance Druid is very OP. I just hope they nerf this aspect from Balance Druid and not the damage. I'm fine with the damage. I'm fine with Convoke. I'm fine that they do a lot of damage. I'm just not fine with being them being like super tanky and just wait for 2 minutes and then Convoke again. I feel like they need to give up some tankiness to the damage that they are doing. Or the other way, but I feel like it becomes very boring if they have like no damage and just tankiness. Then it becomes a Cyclone bot, and why take a Balance Druid if you can take a Resto Druid for that? Affliction Warlock. It is A tier. I'm going to explain why. It is in front of Marksmanship Hunter. It has some good comps that they can play. For example, with an Elemental Shaman, with Shadow Priest for Shadow play. They can also play with an Unholy DK. They can also play with a Frost DK. They can also play with a Monk, but it's kind of hard to play around a Monk since they have a lot of instant damage, and you're trying to go for dampening as Affliction Warlock. They have a lot of tools, but they stay very squishy. If the melees are going to go training the warlock, it becomes very hard for them to just come back from it because you're always on a treadmill trying to reach on the damage that you can provide for your team. That's why they are A and not S tier, especially if you're trying to compare them with fire, with elemental shamans, with boomkins. In general, Affliction Warlock just lacks the instant damage that a Fire Mage or Elemental Shaman or a Boomkin can do. They have reliable CC, that's for sure. They have also TP plays, they can also portal away, they can soul shape away, they have very good consistent damage. And they are also very scary if you're just letting them cast. But everyone knows if there's an Affliction Warlock, what you're trying to do is be on them like H24 and try to silence everything that they have since all their casts are shadow. And also if you interrupt or silence a shadow spell, often or not, they cannot use any defensives. No Nether Ward, no unresolving the wall from Warlocks, and they cannot use fears, they cannot use anything except for soul shape or for soul rot. So for me, it's a clear A tier. Demonology Warlock. I think the problem I have with this tier is for me it's very difficult to find a C tier and a D tier spec. The only spec for me which is not unplayable but just straight up they need a lot of help is Demonology Warlock. It doesn't have the consistent damage that they need to have to be performant in arenas, but they also have the possibility to burst since they need to cost a lot. If they get kicked on Hand of Gul'dan, they are pretty much screwed. If they're getting kicked on any other spec, they stay they stay screwed because all their good spells are Shadow or Shadow Flame, which is very annoying. So that's why it's a D tier. I love Demonology. I just don't like the current iteration of Demonology, and I just hope that people will, of Blizzard will realize that they need a lot of help for them to become competitive, but also become fun to play. I think Mist of Pandaria was one of the times, or even Cataclysm was on one of the times where Demonology was actually fun to play, even though it's not very viable. It was actually fun. And Shadowlands, PFA, even Legion, those iterations were very boring for them. And I just hope that Blizzard knows that and that they understand that the actual iteration for Demonology is very bad for the game. I just prefer them to rework completely the class. Destruction Warlock will be A tier behind Affliction, even behind Marksmanship. It has a lot of damage if left alone, if they cast all the chaos bolts in the world on you and you let them cast, of course you're going to get 3-shotted, 4-shotted. But often than not, you can always stop chaos bolts from happening because of stuns, CC, in general, like fears, disorient, silence, interrupts, even grounding totem if you have a shaman in your team. You're pretty much hard screwed as a distro lock because of their current iteration, but of course the damage that they can provide is very very high. That's why they stay A tier. They are a little bit more tanky than Affliction Warlock, so they will survive a lot more than them. There is a lot of buffs coming their way, especially on the PvP talent wise, with Demon Skin being like buffed, and also the circle to not get interrupted becomes a standalone talent and not combined with resolve, which is very good. Which is very good. So for me, Destruction Warlock, even though it's very boring to play at the moment, Destruction Warlock, it is a A tier. It has some good comps. In twos, you are pretty much going to play only with a healer, and like you will prefer to play with a holy paladin. You will need to play with a holy paladin if you want to go high with a Destruction Warlock. But as a trees comp, you can always play with an elemental shaman. You can play with a balanced druid. You can play with a mage. You can play with a warrior. You can play even with a hunter. You have a lot of options in trees because you have a lot of damage. People will go on you, and the other class that you are going to play with will get unchecked, will be left unchecked, and he will have a lot of damage for the team, which is very good if you play with a main DPS class like Mage or Warrior or Monk. Shadow Priest. It is a S tier spec behind all of them. It's between A and S. I'm probably going to change the tier list. I'm going to do that. Like that, like that. A plus. C tier is still below average, like below, and this is average. This is good, very good, god tier. Shadow Priest is between them. I don't feel like they are god tier. They're just very strong. They are very tanky. They have like instant damage. They can, since their rework did make Shadow Priest very fun. They're also very fun to play. They have a lot of comp that can play with, like warriors, like monks, like with DK, with an unholy DK, with a frost DK, with also a affliction warlock for shadow play. You can also play with a red paladin, with a feral druid. There's a lot of comps that you can play as a shadow priest. I just think they are not quite on par with a balanced druid, for example, and that's why I put them like right between them. They are above A tier and below S tier, but not that below. If I could put like A plus 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 and S, I would do that, but I feel like the tier list will be unreadable at the moment if I just change a lot. Now let's talk about the tier list in general. Am I happy at the moment with the current iteration? I feel I feel like arcane mages. I feel like we could do like that, and frost mages go to A tier because I have a lot of hope for frost mages to be actually A tier, and arcane mages need a lot of work to make them like on par with other specs. I would say they are even on par with demonology, but since they have a lot of tools that mages have in general, it bumps them to B tier or A tier at the moment. And I feel like this iteration of this tier list is the most representative of the range spec in general. So, how do you read this tier list? You just read it as a top 11, since we have 11 specs. you read it as a top 11. For me, Fire Mage is top 1, top 2, top 3. Excuse me, Balance Druid is in front of Elemental Shaman. So top 1, top 2, top 3, then you go for top 4, top 5, top 6, top 7, top 8, top 9, 10, and 11. BM Hunter, they are B tier. B tier is average, so it's not bad. It's just the problem is they have a lot of specs that are just plainly better than them. And I feel like with the current buffs that are coming on their way, they will make them very strong. I'm probably going to upgrade them in the future, but for now, we'll let them at B tier. Arcane mages are B plus, but I will put them at B tier since since they have the utility of a mage. They will stay very good even though their spec is not that optimal. Frost mages is kind of the same, but they have a lot of consistent great damage and control, and I feel like the more HP will have in the future, the more dampening games you will have in the future, the more prevalent frost mages will be, and the lesser prevalent of the fire mages will go back to their normal tiers like A tier and B tier. I hope you guys will agree with my tier list. If you're not agreeing, this is normal. We can always discuss about it. I feel like people will talk the most about BM hunters, arcane mages, frost mages, and even about shadow priests. I can understand why shadow priests will go to S tier. I just feel I need to make a representative tier list. I cannot put everyone on S since not everyone is as good as each other. Especially, you will need to see it as a top 11. If I could make like top 1, top 2, top 3, it would be great, but it will not be readable. That's why I'm making S, A plus, A, B, and C. So, guys, please let me know in the comments what you think about the tier list. Please like and subscribe to support my channel, and also let me know in the comments what kind of content you would like to see. Do you want to see montage PvP videos? Do you want to see more guides? Or do you want to see more discussions about problems like current problems of WoW PvP? What do you want to see in the future? I would like to know. Also, subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot for me. I try to reach as much as possible, but organically. Like there's a lot of people that are trying to promote their channels on different websites or different Discord channels. But I feel like I just want to organically grow, and that's why any help is welcome. If you can help with my YouTube channel, that would be great. And I hope I will put up some very good content in the future. The next tier list will be about healers, and the tier list after that will be probably at the beginning of season 2. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please like it. If you dislike the video, please dislike it. But especially let me know in the comments why you liked that video or why you disliked that video. And please let's debate about the tier list. I learn every day something about any class or any spec, and I like to debate with people. So now I wish you a very good day, and we will see each other very soon. Bye.